Most pilots will never see a B-2 Spirit in person. Not because it's rare to encounter one at an airshow, but because the aircraft is deliberately kept away from public view. There are only 20 of them in existence. 20. For the entire United States Air Force. Each one costs approximately $2 billion to build, and when you factor in research development and the decades of classified engineering that went into it, the true cost per airframe climbs even higher. This is not just a plane. It is one of the most expensive, secretive, and strategically significant weapons systems ever built by any nation on Earth, and you fly it. But before we get to what it feels like to sit in that cockpit, we need to talk about how you even get there, because the path to becoming a B-2 mission commander is not a straight line. It is a decade-long process of elimination, evaluation, and escalating pressure that quietly filters out the vast majority of military pilots long before they ever come close to Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri, which is the only base in the world where B-2s are permanently stationed. It starts with becoming a pilot in the United States Air Force, which is already one of the most competitive professional tracks in the country. You need a college degree, you need to pass an officer qualifying test, you need to score high enough on the aviation selection instrument to be competitive for a pilot training slot, and you need to get through undergraduate pilot training, which is a roughly 1-year program that is physically and mentally exhausting in ways most people underestimate. You are flying multiple times a week, you are studying aircraft systems, weather, navigation, and emergency procedures constantly. And you are being graded on everything. The washout rate is real. Plenty of intelligent, capable people do not make it through. If you survive pilot training and earn your wings, you do not get to pick the B-2. Nobody picks the B-2 at that stage. You get assigned to an airframe based on the needs of the Air Force, your performance ranking in your pilot training class, and available slots. You might fly T-38s, F-16s, KC-135 tankers, or any number of other aircraft first. For most B-2 pilots, there is a significant period flying other platforms before the opportunity to transition even becomes a possibility. The selection process for the B-2 community is deliberately opaque. The Air Force does not publish a checklist that says fly this many hours, score this high, attend this school, and you will be considered. What is known is that candidates are evaluated on their overall flying record, their demonstrated judgment and professionalism, their security clearance eligibility, and their performance assessments from commanding officers. The B-2 community is small enough that reputation matters enormously. People talk. If you have a history of cutting corners, of being difficult to work with, of making avoidable mistakes, information travels. The people who get selected tend to be not just technically excellent but also deeply reliable under pressure and easy to trust with information that cannot leave a room. Once selected for the B-2, you go through initial qualification training, which introduces you to the aircraft systems, its flight characteristics, its mission profiles, and the unique demands of low observable operations. The B-2 is a flying wing design, meaning it has no conventional tail, no vertical stabilizers in the traditional sense. Its flight control system is extraordinarily complex, managed by computers that are constantly making micro-adjustments to keep the aircraft stable. As a pilot, you are flying with the assistance of systems that would not have been possible in an earlier era of aviation. Understanding what those systems are doing when they might fail, and what your inputs mean in the context of a $2 billion aircraft, requires a level of systems knowledge that goes well beyond what most pilots need for conventional platforms. Your training in the B-2 community is also deeply classified. The specific tactics, the specific mission profiles, the electronic systems on board, the full extent of what the aircraft can and cannot do, none of that is public knowledge. What is publicly acknowledged is that the B-2 is capable of carrying both conventional and nuclear weapons, that it is designed to penetrate the most heavily defended airspace in the world without being detected, and that its missions are planned at the highest levels of the national security apparatus. When you are training for these missions, you are operating inside a bubble of secrecy that affects everything from what you can tell your family about your work to how you discuss your career in social settings. Becoming a mission commander specifically, rather than simply a qualified B-2 pilot, adds another layer. The mission commander in a B-2 operation is the officer responsible for the overall execution of a strike mission. The B-2 typically flies with a 2-person crew, a pilot and a mission commander, though the roles can overlap depending on the specific configuration and mission type. As mission commander, you are not just flying the aircraft. You are responsible for the entire sequence of events from takeoff to weapons release to return. You are the decision maker in the air. If something changes, if conditions on the ground shift, if communications go down, if a threat presents itself that was not in the briefing, you are the one who has to process that information and act. The Air Force has spent years and enormous resources training you to handle exactly those moments, and those moments are the reason your rank matters. By the time you are sitting in that cockpit as a mission commander, you have accumulated thousands of flight hours. You have gone through security screenings that examined your finances, your personal relationships, your history in detail most people would find intrusive, and you have been trusted with information that a vanishingly small number of people on Earth are cleared to know. You are not just a pilot, you are a custodian of one of the most powerful conventional strike capabilities in existence, and the weight of that does not sit lightly on anyone who truly understands what they are carrying. The briefing room where your mission begins looks nothing like what most people imagine when they picture a military operation being planned. There are no dramatic maps spread across a table, no general standing over a globe. It is a secure, classified space with controlled access, where the information presented to you has been compiled by intelligence analysts, targeters, strategic planners, and commanders who have been working the problem long before you walked in. Your job in that room is to absorb, to ask the right questions, and to build a complete mental model of what the next several hours are going to require of you. The mission package you receive is comprehensive. You know your route. You know your ingress and egress corridors. You know the threat environment, meaning the surface-to-air missile systems, the radar networks, the fighter aircraft that might be operating in the area. You know the target. You know the weapons you are carrying, the specific parameters for release, the conditions under which you will execute, and the conditions under which you will abort. You know your communication windows, which are limited deliberately, because a stealth aircraft that transmits frequently is an aircraft that can be found. Much of what you do on a B-2 mission is conducted in near-total radio silence, which means the decisions made in that briefing room have to be complete enough to guide you through scenarios where you cannot simply call someone and ask. There is a particular kind of focus that takes over when you walk from the briefing to the flight line. People who have been through high-stakes operations in any domain, medicine, law enforcement, special operations, tend to describe a similar cognitive state where the noise of the outside world simply becomes irrelevant. Your attention narrows to what is in front of you and what you need to do. For a B-2 mission commander, that state begins well before you strap in, because the pre-flight process for a $2 billion aircraft is extensive. The ground crew has been working the aircraft before you arrive. The B-2's radar-absorbing coating, its low observable skin, requires meticulous maintenance. Any damage to that surface, however small, compromises the aircraft's stealth signature in ways that could be operationally significant. The crew chief will walk you through the aircraft status. You conduct your own inspection. You are looking at the aircraft the way a surgeon looks at a patient before an operation, not because you distrust the people who prepared it, but because the responsibility ultimately belongs to you once you sign off and climb in. The cockpit of the B-2 is a side-by-side configuration, both crew members seated in ejection seats, with a shared instrument panel that, by modern standards, is a sophisticated glass cockpit. The systems display information from across the aircraft in a format designed to give you situational awareness without overwhelming you. You run through your checklist. The engines start, and then from the outside something almost surreal happens. This enormous, almost alien-looking aircraft begins to move. The flying wing shape, that distinctive bat-like silhouette, rolls onto the runway, and it does not look like it should fly. It looks like a piece of architecture. It does fly, powerfully. The B-2 uses 4 General Electric F-118 engines, and at full thrust on takeoff, the aircraft lifts with a smoothness that surprises people who have flown more conventional platforms. Once airborne, you begin climbing toward the operating altitude that makes the B-2 what it is. At altitude, the aircraft is beyond the reach of most conventional air defenses, operating at a height where the combination of stealth, speed, and electronic systems makes it extraordinarily difficult to detect, track, and engage. The duration of B-2 missions is one of the details that does not fully register with most people until they hear it stated directly. These are not one-hour sorties. B-2 missions have historically lasted over 30 hours, requiring aerial refueling from tanker aircraft that rendezvous with you at designated points along your route. You are in that cockpit, in that seat, managing that aircraft, for a stretch of time that would constitute a full working day and then some. The physical toll is real. Crews use in-flight rest protocols. There is a small crew rest area behind the cockpit, but the psychological demand of sustained alertness over that kind of duration is significant. You are not just flying, you are maintaining the mental precision needed to execute a classified strike mission after potentially 20+ hours in the air. The weapons release is the operational culmination of everything that has come before it. The training, the planning, the hours in the air. The B-2 carries its weapons internally, in 2 bays that preserve the aircraft's stealth profile. Depending on the mission, you might be carrying GPS-guided conventional bombs, penetrating munitions designed to destroy hardened underground facilities, or in a nuclear mission, gravity bombs that represent the most destructive capability in the United States arsenal. The release sequence is precise, controlled, and conducted according to parameters established long before you took off. At that moment, as mission commander, you are the last human link in a chain that connects national policy to physical effect on the ground. After release, you are not done. You still have to get home. The return flight carries its own demands. The threat environment may have changed. Weather can be a factor. The aircraft, the systems, your own body after hours of sustained operation, all of it requires continued management. When Whiteman finally appears on your instruments and you begin your descent, there is no ceremony. You land, you taxi, you shut down, and the ground crew meets you. The debrief comes next, a careful reconstruction of everything that happened from the moment you took off. What does not get discussed outside cleared channels is the specific weight of what you just did. The B-2 does not fly training missions over hostile territory. When it goes somewhere, it goes for a reason that someone at a very high level of the United States government has authorized. As mission commander, you executed that authorization. You live with the knowledge of what that means, and you carry it quietly, in a career defined by things you cannot talk about, in a community small enough that almost everyone you know understands exactly what that silence costs.